I think we are live. Awesome. So, hey, and welcome to Kid Concept Office Hours to everyone who tuned in from all around the world. So, after being interviewed last week by the one and only Erico Andre, today I have the honor to hosting this episode because a certain person whose name starts with Erico and ends with Andre asked me to do this. And also today, a new background without any spaceships that might crash, but instead with another guest. Rob Gietema is, and I hope I pronounced that at least sort of
Yes, you
okay-ish,
did. You did pretty well.
um, is here to talk a small, very small piece of software called Nick that he has been working on. So welcome to the stream, Rob.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Um, let's start right in. For the people watching who might not know you yet, could you maybe say a few sentences, a few words about who you are and how you got into Plone and when that was? Yeah.
Sure, sure. Well, as you can see by the color of my beard, I'm old, so I have been a long time member of the Plum community as well. So I think I started in with Zope around 2001, I guess. Yeah, around 2001. Building another CMS on top of Zope, and then later on I joined the Plum community, which was around probably 2006, 2007. Did a lot of stuff in the community, obviously, a lot of integrations for clients, building websites, built a lot of software, a lot of add-ons, built the TinyMC integration like way back in the day, did some stuff on Deco, Mosaic for people who still know what that is. And after that, I worked on a little pet project called Volto, um, which turned out to be a little bit bigger than that and is now used as the standard front end for Plum. Um, yeah, that's about it. I'll stop at the Nick part.
Absolutely. So, let's start right in. I have a few questions for you, and also talking about questions. Hi to everyone in the chat. Feel free to say hi as well. And as we are live, feel free to bring your own questions. Ask them in the chat, and I'll do my best to have an eye on them and bring them to the one and only Rob, and right here. But let's start right in. What is Nick? What is that? Is that
Yeah,
like
that's even a
the
question from
new
chat, I see. Yeah. So what it is?
indeed.
There you go. Yeah. So Nick is a backend a content management system backend, similar to the Plone REST API backend. It uses the same API, uses the same specifications. So it's basically a drop-in replacement. So you can use either Nick, or you can use the Plone REST API, and then using Volto or another front-end system in front of that. Yeah, so that's the short version of it. Yeah, and it has a lot of features which Plone has well. Yeah, that's the short version. But I'm sure there's more in-depth questions.
Absolutely, yeah. Talking about it, so the main thing that sets it apart from like the regular clone we all know and love is the
Mhm.
tech stack, I guess. So how is
Yeah.
that built? Uh,
Yes. Yeah, so the Nick is built on TypeScript, so that's the one of the main differences. And Nick uses Postgres as a storage solution. I mean, even though you can use that, you can use Postgres in Plone as well, but it's usually a layer on top of ZODB. So Nick uses a relational database by default. So all content is stored in a readable format in the database. Files can or cannot be, you can choose where you want to store those files, but they can be stored in there as well. And all sorts of every data which you have is basically stored in a relational database. Yeah, the front end or the back end is written in TypeScript, so not in Python. Reason being that it's the same language used as in the front end. So the idea there is that it would be easier for people to jump in, so they don't have to learn two separate languages, but if they know TypeScript already, they can both work on the front end part and on the back end part. And it also has some advantages that you can even reuse some part of the code from one system to the other and even integrate it directly into the system without an extra layer. So those are the advantages there. Yep.
I see, I see. So I think this might annoy a few people. Beloved Python is gone, but uh,
It's not gone. It's just
no,
another
it's
end.
not gone.
It's just another backend. People can choose whatever they want. So if they want to choose to write Python and they are happy with the backend, they can use the Plone REST API. That's perfectly fine. And if if they're more into TypeScript and they want to use that, they can use TypeScript. So that's the good thing about it, because they're both adhere to the Plone REST API contract. So yeah, you can use one or the other depending on what you'd like to use or what you're used to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
talking about that choice. What would you say? Why would someone choose it apart from like personal preference
Mhm.
on technology? Are there any more things apart from the tech stack that sets it apart from Plone, or is that just a one-to-one clone? And if you like TypeScript, go use Nick, and
Mhm.
if you want to stick with Python and Azure, use Plone. Are there any other reasons you might want to use Nick instead of Plone?
Yeah. So regarding the REST API, I'd say about 95% or maybe even more percent of the stack or if of the REST API is the same. So there's some things which are features which are available in one system which is not available in the other. Uh, they're smaller ones, but they're there. For another thing is that it's not just a language, right? Because like Plone system, as I said, I've been in the community for a really long time, and that also means that the product has then been there for a really long time, which has advantages that it's battle tested. There's a lot of add-ons for it. It's robust. It's proven in production. But it also means that it has a lot of code and maintenance and technical depth in there. Obviously, it's a large code base, so it has literally 100,000 or millions of lines of code, which might for a new developer might be hard to jump into. Because Plone does so much more than just the REST API. You can basically do classic UI interfaces on top of it or whatever you want. And Nick is different in a way that it's written from the ground up. Basically, the design of Nick or the contract was the REST API, and it only needed to adhere to that and not to anything else. So it didn't have any interface or anything like it. It just needed to adhere to that contract. So Nick is probably about, I don't know, I didn't count recently, but I think around 9,000, maybe 10,000 lines of code. So it's a lot smaller and a lot more compact and a lot more straight to the point in that sense. Regarding features, as I said, most of the of everything is the same. There's definitely some differences. One of the big differences is that like TypeScript by default is async, meaning it doesn't have any blocking I/O, which makes it easier to do certain things like streaming data, background tasks, and all that stuff. So the big thing I'm currently using it in Nick is for the AI integration. So there's integration with LLMs and other AI models, which are used in there to do certain things. So it can do text indexing and searching based on vectors. We can do automatic generation of alt text for images. There's an assistant in there which you can use to do also all sorts of things. So that's different. And yeah, so those are, as I said, there are smaller things which are available in one system which are not in the other. But it mostly overlaps, and it's your preference which one of those two you can choose. Oh, I think your microphone muted for some reason.
I
Yeah, there we
am.
go.
I am. I'm indeed. Indeed, I am. Yeah. We already have a first question from the chat that maybe
Yep.
you could answer. Hi, Fleming. I think that's Alok. Hi to
Yes.
India. Is asking, does Nick support only PostgreSQL, or can I use any other relational databases as well for
Yep.
data storage?
Yeah, great question. So the reason I chose Postgres is because Postgres is, beside it being a relational database, it also has a lot of plugins available, which are very useful. One of which is it has really good JSON support. And since the REST API is mostly built on JSON going back and forth, that means that part of the storage is also stored in JSON, and other databases are able to store JSON as well, but Postgres is also able to query and really interpret what's in those JSON fields as well. So that's the reason why I chose Postgres. Furthermore, Postgres supports blobs, so binary large objects, to be stored. There's some methods there to do that, handle that easily. And Postgres, for the AI part, Postgres has really good support for vectors. So when you want to do text indexing, etc., you can store vectors, but also compare vectors and stuff like that. So in theory, depending on the feature set you want, so if you don't need any of the specific features I just mentioned, then it should definitely be possible to use a different relational database. But at the moment, Postgres is a well-proven technology, a well-proven database. So for me personally, I don't see any reason to look into supporting others, but I'm sure there's definitely possible if people look into other databases to see if they can make everything or parts of it work. Yeah.
I see. Um, in that regard, I was just thinking, you were talking about blobs, which includes images and files, which is
Yeah.
a rather big part of a website. So there is no support to store them on the file system itself. You need Postgres for that at the moment, or?
There is. So
Ah,
currently
okay.
in Nick, you can there's a configuration file where you can specify how you want to handle images and files. By default, it will store it on disk, so pretty similar to how the ZODB works with blob storage. It's basically a folder, shared folder on disk, which stores all the files, so both files and images, and all the image scales and all the binary data. And you are able to store data from there and retrieve the data from there and make it available through the REST API. Big advantage of it, it's a rather simple setup. It's also really fast because reading from file system is really fast. Downside is if you, depending on your hosting setup, so if you have a some free tier hosting setup, then usually they don't allow you to write any data. So in that scenario, a simpler setup would be to store all the blob data in a database. And that way you can handle all the files in there and basically load and save them in there, which makes the setup well, it's all in one location, which is an advantage. It's easier for the setup, but your database, depending on if you have a really large site, then obviously your database can grow fairly large, which might also have implications for speed, depending on how well you tune your database, of course. Yeah, but both options are available, and it's up to you to choose whichever suits your use case best.
Nice, rather flexible. Yeah, we've been talking about features a couple minutes before.
Yep.
Talking is one thing. Why don't we take a look at it
Sure.
right here on the spot?
Yes, we can. Let me share my screen or a window. Let's see. I think this should work. Yes. All right. So what you're currently looking at is a Volto frontend with a Nick backend. It's a standard demo website. So basically, I can log in, same as you would if you're using Volto on top of Plone. Yeah, from a user perspective,
it does have a bit of a different theme, right?
it does. Yeah, I just made a slightly changed the theme for the demo website, but there's nothing. There's no custom implementation or anything in Volto because it's just pointing to a different URL where the backend is located, and for the rest it's all the same. So with the normal Volto frontend without any modifications, you could run this as well. Yep. Yeah, so looking at this system, there's a lot to show, but then again, if you're familiar with Volto and Plone, there's nothing different basically. So you're able to edit all the pages. Obviously, you will see the editor in here. You have the sidebar with all the blocks. You can obviously have all the folder contents with everything. The whole system works exactly the same as it does with a Plone backend. So you have all the same properties there. There's workflow in there, which you can do to publish, to retract, send back your documents. You can define custom workflows. You can check your history. You can do sharing, so the whole permission system, which is there in Plone, is also available in Nick. So that means, which is rather extensive. We have permissions, we have roles, we have users, we have groups. global ones, and then we also have local ones. So you can apply a certain role to a certain user at a specific location on the website, and you can inherit it down in that tree. Um, yeah, and workflow obviously also will change your permissions on that site. So there's quite a lot of ways to add permissions to specific stuff, and that's also there. Yeah, one last thing which was added recently is content rules. We'll show you here. Content rules is a very powerful feature in Plone as well, which can be used to handle certain actions based on an event. So let's say when a document is added, it could automatically publish that content item, for example, or if a user is logged in, it could log that to a file, or if a page is deleted, it could send out an email to someone, and all that functionality is handled by content rules. It's a really, really flexible and advanced system. I'd never used it that much in Plone, so I had to do some research to actually see how it worked before I implemented it in Nick. But I eventually almost know all the ins and outs, and it's now usable in Nick as well.
So
What
that
else is
means
there?
developing Nick, you also learn quite a bit about Plone itself, right?
Yes, for sure. Yeah, so that's a good call. So basically, when I so maybe that's the whole question about why you even built this system, right? Because we have a perfectly working Plone REST API, and why would I start building this? So I started building this quite a long time already. I think in 2018 at the Plone conference in Tokyo. Basically, it started out as a project I built Volto back then, and for me to test some functionality in Volto, I thought, well, maybe it's nice to have like a small testing backend to see if some functionality in Volto worked, which was compatible with the Plone REST API. So I didn't have to set up the whole Plone backend to do so. So that's basically how it started. And then I was like, okay, maybe I can just do some REST API endpoints, like getting content. And then I was like, okay, maybe I can also save content that way. And then, well, I added users, I added login, I added groups, and then I was like, okay, it's already coming quite far, so maybe we can go even further than that. So, and then it basically grew from there, where, well, eventually it's almost on feature par with what you're able to do in Plone. And sometimes it has more features as said. But yeah, it's because I had to look into it. It was a really great way to actually look at all the internals of Plone. As I said, I was working on Plone. I'm working with Plone for quite a long time, so I already know quite a lot about it. But when you actually have to implement the same functionality, you actually really have to go into the nitty-gritty details and to see, okay, how does it actually work? So for instance, local roles, how do they even work, and how does a view decide whether or not you have permission on a certain type of element, and how is that used? So I reused a lot of the functionality. There's no sharing of code, obviously, because it's totally different languages. But a lot of the same terminology and a lot of the same functionality-wise is used in both systems. So that's why, I learned a lot from the architecture. And I mean, the REST API and the architecture both are really great in Plone. So that helped out quite a lot to build the whole front end. yeah, and apart from that, it was really a lot of fun to build. So even I mean, I learned a lot building it, but it's also a lot of fun to start with this system and to yeah, to go from basically nothing to a fully working backend, being able to do everything there. Yep.
We have one more question from chat.
Okay.
Erica would like to use your nice theme just by default in Volto. Is that available somewhere?
It is, yes. So the Volta or Nick is also open source, obviously. It's currently in my repository, and I'm now in the process talking to the board of moving it to the Plone Foundation GitHub. The website you're seeing here is also in my repo. I think it's called Nick example front end, I think, and all the code is in there. So the design is in there, and also some customization, which you might see in the bottom right. There's the assistant, which the code for that
I
part is
see.
also there.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah. I mean, good transition to more stuff to show off. Why don't we have a look at that right now? You already
Yes, we
clicked on
could.
it.
Although I don't have it. I don't have the LLM set up locally, but I do. What I do have are um, some yeah, I can share a bit about the AI part. So
Okay,
these are
fair
some
enough.
slides from yeah, so that's part of the assistant. It also has some screenshots there and some videos. So this is in Nick you can there's some AI functionality as I mentioned. So as the same as in Plone, you have profiles which contain certain settings and configuration for your website. You can have multiple. One of those profiles is AI, so you can enable it if you want AI functionality. And if you do, in the configuration, there are some settings to enable the AI as well. So you can set different models. So in this case, we have the LLM model, and that's currently connected to a local LLM server based on a Quant3 model. You can also add not just LLM models, but can also add vision models to do features with images or text indexing models, etc., which can be added there. Then what's available in the endpoints in Nick is the add chat endpoint. So the add endpoint is basically an endpoint which forwards your prompt to an LLM and will respond with the information which you get back from the LLM, obviously. But you can also, it will handle authentication. So that means that you can normally an LLM, if it's there, you can basically log into it already. But here you can manage the authentication in your Nick backend. So you can say, okay, these users are allowed to use the LLM, and these users are not allowed to use it. And then you can provide a context and messages to keep your conversation running. So it's not just a single request which you're doing, but you actually can have interaction with the LLM to make changes there. Yeah, so when you do a request.
I was thinking, how does the context work, or is that something you're gonna dive in
So
further later on?
yes, I can show you a bit, although the context is so when you send a request to an LLM, you basically get a reply, and that's the actual reply, right? That's in the response. That's the thing you ask. But apart from the response, it also returns a context, and the context in this case is a vector or multiple vectors
Okay.
containing that context. And if you in your client, save the context and pass in the context back to the system, it will know what you were asking and what your conversation will be, and then it will continue. So it's basically it's a stateless system. So the server doesn't need to save all the questions you had, but it's basically saved on the client, and you pass in the new context every time you do a new request. So I didn't show it here because it's just a big list of vector numbers.
I mean, those vectors, well, I suppose maybe someone in chat is there who can read pure LLM vectors. But,
maybe
I deem that rather unlikely.
Yeah, that's pretty unlikely indeed. Yeah. So a big advantage of thing which Nick can do as well is streaming endpoints. So what's a streaming endpoint? Normally in the Plone REST API and also Nick API, what you do is you do a request and then you get a reply back. It's either a get or a post or something like that. So basically you do a request and you get everything back at once. With the LLM endpoint or the chat endpoint, that's usually not what you want, because then that means you will get the whole response in one go, even though the LLM will produce separate words already on the go. So that's why the endpoint supports streaming, meaning it will pass in all the text as you go, and then you can basically already see what's happening and not have to wait for the whole text to pop up at one time. So I think there's a video. There should be a video.
Let's see.
Yes, there we go. So here you can see the assistant. So basically, I'll ask it a question. So what's the largest land animal? And then it replies with the largest land animal is the African bush elephant, right? Yeah, so that's like
American
the basic.
elephant.
Oh, maybe they've been there.
Well, I mean, you
like,
don't know what sort of stuff the LLM hallucinates.
That's true as well. Yes. All right. Yeah. So as I said, there's how LLMs work. You can basically have context and messages. So you can either save all the messages you did, or you can save the context it did. And if you pass in those text, then the LLM knows basically what your whole conversation was, and can react to that. So if we look at another example here, so basically I'm asking it the same question, and then I ask it again, okay, tell me a bit about them, and then it knows, okay, you're actually referring to an elephant and not to something else. And as you could see here, the streaming was enabled there, so the words will show up one by one, or rather fast, but it's not like going in one go. I will skip the speech recognition part. That's not so much backend. This is all about. Yeah, so text enabling, that's actually quite useful. So we have an embedding model, which basically AI models can be used to do embeddings as well. So basically what they do is, I will get back to this picture. So you can have a piece of content, which can be either a page or a blog or any piece of content you want, and it basically like sorts it or tags it into multiple dimensions. So that usually means that, like, I don't know, like a banana and an apple are usually closer to each other than, let's say, an apple and a chicken, for example. So it will make lots of multiple. You only see 3 dimensions here because where humans are only restricted to usually seeing 3. But the system can handle way more dimensions and basically categorize all text into multiple dimensions. And those are also vectors, which are then stored in Postgres. As I said, Postgres is able to store vector content, and you can add a catalog index, because Nick also has, same as Plone knows, has a catalog where you can index certain fields. So in this case, we have an embedding field in the catalog. And here you can see, so for all the people who are able to read embeddings, you can see in the bottom right, you can see a full list of what an embedding actually looks like. So it's just a big matrix of all different floating point numbers. That's basically it. Yeah, so where you can use it? You can use it in search. So you'll basically use it in a search query. And you can compare those vectors about how similar they are. So in Postgres, it looks like this. So you can basically compare. You have the operator there, where you can compare the embedding the user is providing with the embedding, or well, it's basically your search term is converted to an embedding, and then that embedding is matched to the embedding which is stored in the catalog, and it will orders it by similarity. And then you can get results like this. So normally in Plone, when you search for the word events, only events will show up. But because the LLM has a bit more knowledge about related words, if I search for meetings in this scenario, then it will also find events, because that's pretty similar. But it won't find news or users, because that's something completely different. And you can obviously define your cutoff similarity. So if you want it to be the similarities between 1 and 0, and if you say, okay, everything which is like 0.6 or better, then it will show up. And if it's worse than that, then it shouldn't show up.
But I cannot just use natural language in the search there, right? Go and say, hi, find me all content that adheres to some criterion, or how does that work?
Yes, well, so that's more from an assistant perspective. So yeah, so you can do stuff like that. This is more in a regular search. When you use the assistant, I have another example where you can actually query the whole website or the specific page you're currently on to fetch some data there. So it's a slightly different way of doing it, but you are able to do it, but not in this search page. This is just a normal search page, but then AI is used in the background to have a bit better results as the normal one, even though people don't see it's actually AI.
I see.
Same with this one. So there's an image recognition model. And what this model can do is you upload an image and it will generate a description. And this description can be used as an alt text. So basically the user, because there's a lot of users which just upload images and there's no alt tag, or the alt tag is the file name, which is not very useful. And if users who are not able to see the images, then they can read the alt text, but if there's nothing there, then it won't work. And this way, the system will generate it for you instead of all the users creating a useful alt tag in there.
Looking at that from like the accessibility perspective, I assume the model is not yet able to determine whether it's worth it to add an alt tag or not, right? Because we don't want alt tags on decorational images. That's still up to the editor to determine, I assume.
I mean, so what it does is it will, if you enable it, because it's in the config as well, it will provide an alt tag for objects, but then the image objects, but then where you use that object, you can decide as a integrator whether or not you want to use the alt tag there or not, or even index it, or have it just not available through screen readers, for example. Yep, so you can definitely do that.
I see.
Let's see. Yeah,
Oh
we're
yeah,
going on and on
also
about AI.
good demo
We
on
can do some
that.
other stuff as well.
Sure.
Unless there's any other questions, but I
Well,
can
well, we
continue with this
have
one
we
as
have
well.
one more question from Timo, who was asking
Yes.
what what Nick can do that Plone currently cannot do. I think
Yeah.
like what we've been talking about for the last 10 to 15 minutes is
Yes.
stuff that Plone, at least on its own at the moment, can not do.
Yes, that's correct.
Um,
Yeah.
is there more stuff to show off in regards to the AI features, or
Um, no, I can go into
might
detail more,
might
but
there be
let
more features apart from AI related features
yeah.
that Nick has that Plone doesn't have yet?
Yeah, so as I said, it's pretty similar. Like almost everything is the same. There's some small differences. This is what the website you see now. That's the documentation of all the endpoints. So here you can see how to install a NIC, how to set up well internationalization, multilingual, AI, etc., etc. And then there's the overview of all the different endpoints. Um, let's say, let's pick a simple one like breadcrumbs, for example. So it basically shows you if you call a breadcrumb, you can do that both from a REST API, and you can also do it with the client directly. So that's one of the features that's not available in Plone, or I'd say if it's not directly available in Plone. So there's a Plone client package which has the same interface as this one, but that still uses a network stack to actually do the REST API call and get the information back. And in this scenario, you can have a front end application which directly calls the client from NIC, so you don't need to have any running server there, so you can use it in the same system. So currently, Victor is working on together with Piero and others working on developing 7, and in 7 you can basically have only one node service running and runs both the backend, and it will fetch the data from the backend directly without the overhead of the network calls. So that's one thing which Nick is able to
It's
do
nice.
and Plone is not able to do. Yeah, and then here you see the result, which is the result which you get back, which is, well, as I said, similar to or exactly the same as we have in Plone. So looking at the features or the endpoints we have in Nick versus Plone, going through the list, I've like all these are the same. Then chat, as I mentioned, that's the AI chat endpoint, which is not available in Plone. Form endpoint is available in Plone through an add-on. Here it's in core. Generate is also an AI
Generate.
endpoint. Sorry?
Generate, that's the what does that generates content?
No. So generate is
Or what does it do?
is another way of calling an
Ah,
LLM.
that
So
was the
most
right.
LLM basically
Okay.
follow the Open API standard, and they have a chat and a generate endpoint, which is pretty similar, but the one is more used to do one-time calls, and the other one is more used to do interactions into the system. So that's why they are both there. Let's see. All this is the same. These are, yeah, and yeah, all translations uses all that is the same. There's some, as I said, some smaller differences. Let me see, content manipulation. So when talking to a lot of people, I show them Nick, and then they say, "Okay, but can Nick do this or can Nick do that?" And then that usually means that I'll trying or going to implement it right away to see if it's not there to implement it. So one of the things which I talked to Steve was regarding calendaring support. There were some issues there in Plone, and I said, okay, yeah, I could maybe implement that. So what I did was implement calendaring support, so you can basically get your data there. So Nick has so collections. That's a feature which we used to have in Plone Classic, and in Volto it was mainly replaced by listing blocks. But there's one use case which listing blocks doesn't cover, and that's the feeds. So basically, if I want to have a calendar feed or an RSS feed or any other feed, then it would be rather useful to have a content object, which could be called feed, which it is in Nick, where you can do a query string search on content, and then you can have a certain export of that. So Nick does support, has a feed content type where you can specify a query to look for specific data. So that could be, well, any query string search. It could be based on type or author or whatever you want to search for. And then you can then you can read a specific feed from it. For example, you can do the ICS, so you can do the calendar export, but you can also do RSS output. So you can do basically say, okay, I want to have the RSS view, and then it will generate an RSS feed, either of that specific only of that content object which you're calling it on, or if it's a folder, it will list all the items in that folder, or if it's a feed content object, it will also list all the matching items in there. So that's something which is also different from what Plone can do. Another thing is more in the backend, which is scheduled tasks. As I said, the Nick uses async by default, and it has a method of defining tasks. Those are scheduled tasks, so basically do this task every minute, hour, second, or whichever you want. And then it has full access to the whole system where it can check certain things, or maybe in combination with content rules or any of it that can be added there. So that's also a feature which Nick has and Plone currently does not have, as far as I'm aware. Yep, I think.
I see multilingual is already supported by default.
Yes, it is. Yes. Yeah, so multilingual works pretty similar as it does in Plone. So that means every content object will have a these are the profiles you can apply to set up multilingual. But each content object has a language. Then objects can be linked to each other. So one can be the canonical version, and then you can have an alternative, or document can be language independent, and you can switch from one language to the other. Yeah, so that can be used in multiple ways, similar to what we currently have in Plone. So you can have a whole website in multilingual with a different navigation structure, or the same navigation structure if you want to. So as a proof of concept or as a implementation, the new website will be live fairly soon, made by a community member called Mac. He built a website with 30 languages using Nick. He showed me a preview yesterday, and I think it will be online fairly soon. So then we can have a real test of what it looks like and how it works with so many different languages in there.
One thing I think I remember from a couple years back, I remember you coding on a prototype for collaborative editing. I'm wondering what happened to that.
I think I did. I don't know how many prototypes of that I did. I think the first one was I was looking back into the original Volto code, which was started in 2017, I think, or maybe earlier. Yeah, or 16. And back then I also did a prototype with collaborative editing. That was way before the whole block editor was there in Volto. I did some prototype in Nick as well with collaborative editing. And yeah, it's not more than that. It's still prototype. I think it's, I mean, as I said, the good thing about Nick is because it's async, it's rather easy to do streaming and WebSockets. So that means you're able to get all the information using a WebSocket as well, which means you can send information back and forth and do push updates from the server. But there's no, it's not further than a prototype currently, but it's definitely something which should be a rather well, easier to do, at least in Nick, where you could do it straight into the backend server instead of you would need a separate system to handle sending the updates back and forth.
Okay, yeah, so that means if someone is keen to finish that and polish that, feel free to come to Beethoven Sprint and maybe
Indeed.
sit together with Rob to work on that. But talking about the future, are there any other plans you currently have in terms of features that you want to add in the near or even long-term future?
Yes, definitely. So I have a whole to-do list of stuff I want to work on, or which I could work on. One of the big things I will most likely work on the next sprint, probably at the Beethoven sprint, is migrations. So currently I have some migration scripts which can be used with, I have to say the name correctly, Plone import export or export import. I always forget what it's called. But
First export, then import.
right. I know there's multiple of those packages. Well, anyway, that package. I have some conversion scripts there, which convert the content exported from there to profiles in Nick. And Nick
Or
uses.
maybe are you talking about collective transmute? That might also.
No. It's one of no. It's not.
Okay.
It is the collective import export one or export import one.
Okay. Export import.
Export import, yes.
I see.
Yeah. So and it will basically grab data from there, and it will output it to profile. Profile in Nick is not just the configuration data, but it can also contain the whole site content. So that can also be added, but you can also convert users and groups and, well, anything basically, content rules, control panel settings, you name it, you can add it to a profile. But currently it's using the Plone export import. But my plan is to create migration scripts to directly call the REST API from a certain system. So that could be Plone, but can also be another Nick system, where you basically call the REST API endpoint and fetch all the data from there, and then generate a profile which you can then read in to another system. So that's high on my list. Then I had some talks about video and audio content, which I might work on. In Node, it's also easy to do chunked output and streaming output. So then you can self-host parts of your video and parts of your audio. Yeah.
So you can do the kit concept office hours using Nick in the future.
So it's uploading videos and then
anymore.
streaming it. It's not live streaming at the moment. At least not what I'm working on now.
Well, put that on your put that on the wish list.
Yes, that will be on the maybe later step. What else? So yeah, I do have profiles and I do have upgrade steps in those profiles, which are currently called from the command line. But I want to have that in the control panel as well, which I'll be working on. There's some scaffolding stuff I want to work on to bootstrapping the project to have that a bit more robust. Um, the whole customization story. You're currently able to basically override anything. So you can override routes, you can override models, you can override events, add end events, etc. But some of them use slightly different ways of doing it, and I want to convert it into using one way of doing it, so it will be easier both to do it from within the product, but also when using add-ons and using it from 7, so from when you're using it in combination with a front-end package. Yeah. Yeah, for the rest, there's a lot of smaller things which we'll see where we go from there. And it's mainly also just talking to people at conferences and sprints, and then they ask me, okay, can Nick do this? Can Nick do that? And if I say, no, but I can have a look into that, and then
Soon.
maybe we'll go from there. Yeah, maybe I usually will just ride on during the sprint, depending on how big the feature is, obviously. But yeah, then we just usually go from there. So there's plenty of stuff which can be added, but as I said, it's already already fully functional, so it could already be used for sure. Yeah.
So that means if you need something, some feature in Nick, just come to some sprint or conference where Rob is and tell him about it, and he'll just sit down in some corner and it'll be done in 2 hours, I guess.
In a restaurant or yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, well, with looking at time, I think it's pretty much a wrap. Is there something else that you'd like the viewers to know that remains to be said from your side?
Um, no, not really. I mean, I'm so this
Some
well
call
as
for action,
same as
please use. Oh, sorry.
yeah, no,
You
same with
continue.
Volto. It basically started out as a project because I like to build things, and then it was fully featured, and people started using it, and now Volto is the default front end of Plone. Uh, Maybe that will happen with Nick as well. Maybe it won't, and that's either way is fine. So I'm just if people want to try it out, all the documentation is there, so you can have a look at the URL you see on your screen now, docs.nickcms.org. There's also just a website with nickcms.org where you can have a look. Um, you can try it out. If there's any issues, please let me know. You can always send an issue on GitHub or ping me on Discord. I'm not very responsive on, but send me an email. And then I can have a look. And yeah, and if you have any issues or any worries or anything else or any feedback or any feature you'd like, then let me know. I'll be happy to help. Yeah.
Okay. I think.
Oh, we have one more question in chat, I
One
think.
more question. Okay, 2 minutes. Let's go.
Yeah.
Is it just you
So
doing all the work or Nick?
yes, it's the short answer. um, the long answer is that I have a lot of discussions with other people regarding features which could be added, could not be added, etc., etc. And then there's definitely some pull requests from others who are working on it or found a bug or any of that. So there are some pull requests of other people, but currently I'm the main developer of the system, which is not by design because I'm happy to work with other people as well. And if anybody wants to step in, join in, work on it, I'll and join for a sprint or anything else, then please do. So it's definitely not a one-person project. That's not what it's supposed to be.
All right. Then I think we have it. It's pretty much an hour now, and it's the concept office hours, so we don't want to do overtime. Uh, Let's call it a wrap here. So
It's called
for the
office
viewers,
hours, multiple.
is it? Oh no. Well, not oh no. It's called office hours because there's one every week from now on.
Right.
So uh, don't forget to tune in next Wednesday when there will be someone sitting somewhere talking to somebody. I don't know yet whether that'll be Eriko or me talking to someone else or Rob talking to Fred. Who knows? There's plenty of combinations to go through in the coming weeks and months. Um, all right. Have a nice day and see you next week.